The Cost of People Pleasing, How Setting Hard Boundaries Doubles Your Productivity. Introduction. The price nobody talks about. Welcome. Breathe deeply. Let your shoulders drop. There is a price that millions of highly capable, caring, and hard-working people pay every single day. A price that never shows up on any bill, is never negotiated, and is almost never discussed. And yet it is one of the most significant drains on human energy, creativity, and productivity that exists. That price is the cost of people pleasing, not the occasional act of compromise, which is healthy and necessary, not genuine generosity, which is beautiful and life-giving, but the chronic, compulsive pattern of prioritizing other people's comfort, approval, and preferences above your own clarity, your own values, and your own most important work, even when doing so creates real and lasting harm to yourself and, ultimately, to everyone you are trying to serve. This audiobook is called The Cost of People Pleasing, and the central claim it makes is both simple and radical, that learning to set hard, honest, compassionate boundaries is not a selfish act. It is one of the highest leverage productivity decisions available to you. Done with integrity, it can literally double the quality and quantity of your most important output. We will explore why people-pleasing is so seductive and so costly. We will examine the hidden mechanisms by which the inability to say no drains focus, fragments attention, and prevents the deep work that produces your greatest results. And we will build, step by step, a practical framework for setting boundaries that protect your most valuable resource, your focused, energized attention, while maintaining and often deepening your most important relationships. Let us begin. Chapter 1. What people-pleasing actually is. Before we talk about the cost, let us be precise about what people-pleasing actually is, because it is frequently misunderstood, and because naming it accurately is the first step to changing it. People-pleasing is not kindness. Kindness is freely given and comes from a place of genuine care. People-pleasing is driven by anxiety, by the fear of disapproval, conflict, rejection, or the discomfort of another person's negative emotion. The people-pleaser does not primarily ask, "What is the genuinely kind thing to do here?" They ask, "What will prevent this person from being upset with me?" People-pleasing is not generosity. Generosity flows from abundance, from a genuine desire to give what you have freely and without hidden expectation. People-pleasing flows from scarcity, from the belief that your value to others depends on your perpetual availability, your constant accommodation, and your willingness to sacrifice your own needs to meet theirs. People-pleasing is not flexibility or open-mindedness. Those qualities involve genuinely updating your views and preferences in response to new information. People-pleasing involves performing agreement or accommodation that you do not actually feel in order to manage another person's emotional state. At its core, people-pleasing is a survival strategy that was learned, usually in childhood, as a response to environments where approval was unpredictable, where expressing genuine needs or disagreement felt dangerous, or where love seemed contingent on compliance. It served a real function once. The tragedy is that it persists, largely unconsciously, into adult professional and personal life, where it extracts enormous costs without providing the safety it once promised. Recognizing people-pleasing as a learned anxiety response rather than a character flaw is essential because it changes the relationship you have with the pattern. You are not weak or lacking discipline. You are running an old program that was once adaptive and is now costing you more than it protects you. Chapter 2. The Productivity Tax of People-Pleasing. Let us talk specifically about how people-pleasing destroys productivity, because the mechanism is more precise and more damaging than most people realize. The foundation of high productivity is what researchers call deep work, sustained, focused engagement with cognitively demanding tasks that produce your highest value output. Deep work requires extended periods, typically 90 minutes or more, of uninterrupted attention. It cannot be performed in fragments. It cannot be quickly resumed after interruption. It is biologically incompatible with constant availability to others. The people pleaser, almost by definition, has designed their life and work to make deep work nearly impossible. They respond to every message quickly because the anxiety of an unanswered message is intolerable. They accept every meeting request because declining feels rude. They take on every task that is handed to them because saying I do not have capacity for that feels selfish. They make themselves available to everyone who needs something because the alternative, letting someone be inconvenienced or disappointed, feels unbearable. The result is a workday of perpetual fragmentation, a continuous stream of small obligations, each individually reasonable, that collectively prevent any sustained focus. The people pleaser works constantly and produces relatively little of their highest value work, not because they lack capability, but because their time and attention are structurally unavailable for the depth that capability requires. There is a second, more insidious productivity cost of people-pleasing, the open-loop problem. Every commitment you make that is not fully aligned with your actual capacity and values creates what psychologists call an open loop, an unfinished item that occupies mental bandwidth, even when you are not consciously attending to it. The overcommitted person carries dozens, sometimes hundreds, of open loops at any time. The favor you agree to and have not yet delivered, the project you should not have taken on, but did, the conversation you are dreading having, the boundary you know you need to set, but have not yet set. These open loops are cognitive weight. They sit in the background of your mind, consuming the very energy and attention your most important work requires. Research on cognitive loads suggests that even low-level background processing of unresolved obligations measurably degrades performance on demanding cognitive tasks. The person with clean commitments, who has said yes only to what they genuinely intend to deliver and no to everything else, operates with a dramatically lighter cognitive load. Their mind is freer for the work that actually matters. Chapter 3. The hidden relationship. Cost people pleasers often resist boundaries because they believe boundaries will damage their relationships. The opposite is usually true. Here is the paradox at the heart of people pleasing. By trying to be endlessly agreeable and available, the people pleaser actually makes genuine relationship impossible. Genuine relationship requires genuine presence. It requires bringing your actual perspective, your actual needs, your actual self, not a performed version of yourself, calibrated to what you think the other person wants. When you habitually suppress your own perspective to accommodate others, the relationship that forms is not really a relationship with you. It is a relationship with a mirror, a reflection of what the other person projects. That kind of relationship is ultimately unsatisfying for both parties. The friend who always agrees with you, always accommodates you, never pushes back, never expresses their own needs or boundaries, is not providing friendship. They are providing a performance of friendship that prevents the real thing from developing. You cannot trust a person who never says no, because you never know whether their yes reflects genuine willingness or anxious compliance. Hard boundaries, by contrast, create the conditions for genuine trust. When someone says no to you, clearly, kindly, without drama, you learn something real about them. You learn where they actually stand. You learn that when they say yes, they mean it. You learn that you can rely on what they tell you because they are willing to tell you things you might not want to hear. The relationships built on the foundation of honest boundaries are more durable, more trusting, and more nourishing than the relationships built on endless accommodation. People who set clear boundaries are, paradoxically, often more deeply appreciated and more deeply trusted than people who never disappoint anyone, precisely because their approval, their agreement, and their yes are known to be genuine. Chapter 4. The Physiology of People-Pleasing. To understand why breaking the pattern of people-pleasing feels so difficult, and why it requires deliberate practice rather than simple willpower, it helps to understand what is happening in your body when you are asked to do something you do not want to do and feel the pull to say yes anyway. For the habitual people-pleaser, the request for accommodation, any request, even a minor one, activates a mild stress response. The brain reads the potential for disappointing the requester as a social threat, and the nervous system responds accordingly. A slight tension in the chest or stomach, a quickening of the breath, a narrowing of perspective, an urgency to resolve the discomfort as quickly as possible. The quickest resolution available is yes. Saying yes immediately relieves the stress response. It generates a microdose of relief. The threat has been neutralized. The relationship has been maintained. The discomfort has been resolved. This relief is physiologically reinforcing. It trains the nervous system to see yes as safety and no as danger. Over years, this reinforcement creates a deeply conditioned pattern. The automatic yes that precedes any conscious evaluation of whether the yes is actually appropriate, genuine, or in alignment with your values and capacity. Breaking this pattern requires not just intellectual conviction that boundaries are good, but nervous system training, the deliberate, repeated practice of tolerating the discomfort of potential disappointment long enough to make a considered choice rather than a reflexive one. This is why the pause is so essential. Before responding to any request that triggers the pull toward automatic accommodation, practice creating space. I need to check my schedule before I commit to that. Let me come back to you. I want to think about whether I can do this well. This pause is not stalling. It is the practice of restoring access to your actual preferences and values before committing your most precious resources. With practice, the pause becomes shorter and the discomfort of potential disappointment becomes more tolerable. You begin to trust that relationships can survive a no. You begin to feel the relief that comes not from eliminating the discomfort, but from discovering that you can handle it. And that trust, that felt sense of safety with honest communication, is the foundation of everything that follows. Chapter 5. The Art and Science of the Hard Boundary. Let us talk about what a hard boundary actually is, how it differs from other ways of managing requests, and how to set one with integrity and care. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not an expression of hostility, judgment, or superiority. It is a clear, honest statement about what you are and are not available for, about where your yes is genuine and where it is not. A well-set boundary is an act of honesty, and honesty is the foundation of genuine respect. A boundary is also not a negotiation. The people-pleaser often softens a no into a maybe into a yes, but, and a yes, but into an eventual reluctant yes. This pattern, motivated by the wish to reduce disappointment, actually produces more disappointment, more frustration, and more damage to the relationship than a clean no would have done. When you set a hard boundary, you set it cleanly. No, I cannot take that on. No, that time does not work for me. No, that is not something I can agree to. The clean no, delivered with warmth and without excessive explanation or apology, is one of the most respectful things you can offer another person. It treats them as an adult who can handle honest information and make their own arrangements accordingly. It treats the relationship as robust enough to sustain honesty, and it protects you from the resentment and depletion that accumulate when you repeatedly commit to things you do not genuinely want to do. The language of the hard boundary is specific and learnable. Consider these formulations. I am not going to be able to take that on. Not I am not sure. Or I will try. Or let me see what I can do. Not taking that on. Clear, direct, final. That does not work for me. Not it is a little tricky. Or I might be able to juggle it. But it is hard. Does not work. Full stop. I want to be honest with you. I do not have the capacity for that right now. This formulation pairs honesty with care, acknowledging the other person's need, while being truthful about your own reality. The no does not require an extensive explanation or apology. The more you explain and justify, the more you invite negotiation, and the more you signal that the boundary is fragile. A brief, warm, final no is kinder and more respectful than an elaborate excuse that leaves the door open. Chapter 6. Protecting your deep work time. The most important application of hard boundaries, from a pure productivity standpoint, is the protection of time blocks for deep work, the focused, uninterrupted periods in which your most valuable cognitive work happens. Here is a fact that most people-pleasing professionals have never fully reckoned with. Every hour of deep work is worth far more than any hour of fragmented, reactive, interrupt-driven activity. Research on expertise and creative output consistently shows that the highest value professional contributions, the insights, the creative breakthroughs, the complex problem-solving, the strategic thinking, arise almost exclusively from states of deep focus. They cannot be achieved in scattered 15-minute windows between meetings and messages. This means that protecting even 2 hours of genuine deep work each day can have a more significant impact on your most important results than all the efficient task management in the world. The practical question is, what does it actually take to protect those 2 hours? It takes saying no to meeting requests during those hours. Not most of the time, all of the time, until the protected time is reliably defended. It takes communicating to colleagues, clients, and collaborators when you are and are not available, and holding to that communication even when the pull to be accommodating is strong. It takes accepting that some people will be mildly inconvenienced by your unavailability. This inconvenience is not a crisis. It is the normal, healthy friction of life among adults who have their own priorities and responsibilities. Your unavailability for 2 hours in the morning is not an emergency. Most people, given a clear and honest expectation, will adapt to it quickly and without lasting resentment. It also takes the discipline of actually using the protected time for deep work rather than for comfortable, low-value tasks. Many people-pleasers, when they finally create space for themselves, find that they fill it with busy work rather than facing the demanding work that the space was created for. This is a separate challenge, but the boundary must come first. You cannot do deep work in time that does not exist. Chapter 7. Boundaries in specific contexts. Let us look at how the principles of boundaries and the cost of people-pleasing manifest in specific professional contexts, and what hard boundaries look like in practice in each. In the context of workload and delegation, the people-pleaser takes on more than they can do well, because declining feels like letting people down. The result is a portfolio of commitments in which nothing receives the full attention it deserves. Quality is compromised across the board, and the people-pleaser ends each day having worked hard at everything and excelled at nothing. The hard boundary here is the honest assessment of capacity before committing. Before saying yes to any new responsibility, the practice is to ask, given everything I have already committed to, can I do this well? If the honest answer is no, the boundary is, I do not have capacity to do that well right now. I can take it on in 3 weeks, or I can help you find someone who can do it justice sooner. In the context of communication and availability, the people pleaser responds to messages immediately, regardless of what they are doing when the message arrives. This habit destroys focus, trains others to expect instant responses, and makes it impossible to maintain the sustained attention that deep work requires. The hard boundary here is defined response windows, times during the day when you process messages, and times when you are unavailable. Communicating these windows clearly, setting a status, adding a note to your email signature, telling your team when they can expect to hear back, manages expectations honestly and eliminates the anxiety that drives compulsive checking. In the context of meetings, the people pleaser accepts virtually every meeting request because declining feels rude, particularly from people with more authority. But meetings are the single greatest structural threat to deep work time in most professional environments. The hard boundary here is a clear policy about what kinds of meetings you attend and when. Regular standing meetings outside your protected work hours. Clear criteria for what warrants a meeting versus an asynchronous communication. A willingness to suggest alternatives. I cannot join for the full hour, but I can contribute my perspective in writing beforehand. This is not obstruction. It is resource management. And most organizations benefit greatly when individuals protect the conditions for their best thinking. In the context of personal relationships, the people pleaser says yes to social obligations they do not want to attend, conversations they do not have energy for, and requests for time and support that exceed what they genuinely have to give. The hard boundary here is the honest expression of actual capacity. I love spending time with you and I am genuinely depleted right now. Can we plan for next week when I will be more present? This kind of honest communication strengthens relationships rather than damaging them because it treats the other person as someone whose company you genuinely value, not as an obligation to be managed. Chapter 8. The Productivity Doubling Effect. We have covered the theory. Let us now make the claim in the title concrete. How does setting hard boundaries actually double your productivity? The mechanism is straightforward. Before hard boundaries, your workday consists of 8 to 10 hours of reactive, fragmented activity. You attend meetings you did not need to attend. You respond to messages in real time, disrupting any sustained focus. You work on tasks that are not your highest priority because they were handed to you by someone who expressed urgency. You went despite having been busy constantly, but having advanced your most important work, that perhaps an hour or two, if that. After hard boundaries, you protect 2 to 3 hours of genuine deep work time daily. You attend only the meetings that genuinely require your presence. You process communications during designated windows rather than continuously. You take on new work only when you have genuine capacity to do it well. The difference in output is not marginal. The person with 2 to 3 hours of genuine deep work per day produces more high-value results than the person with 8 hours of fragmented reactive work, because the high-value results come almost exclusively from the focused time and almost not at all from the fragmented time. This is what doubling productivity actually looks like. Not working twice as many hours, but investing the hours you work in dramatically higher leverage activities, protected by the boundaries that make that investment possible. Chapter 9. The Inner Work of Boundaries. Everything we have discussed so far involves external practice, the language, the policies, the time blocks, but the deepest work of setting hard boundaries is internal, because the obstacle to hard boundaries is not usually ignorance of how to set them. Most people-pleasing professionals know, intellectually, that they should say no more often, protect their time, and stop overcommitting. The obstacle is the emotional experience of doing so, the anxiety, the guilt, the fear of disapproval, the sense of being selfish or unkind. This inner experience must be worked with directly, not suppressed or managed away, but genuinely understood and gradually transformed. The practice here is to examine the beliefs that underlie the people-pleasing pattern. What do you believe will happen if you say no? If you disappoint someone? If you are unavailable when someone needs you? If you prioritize your own work above someone else's urgency? For many people, these beliefs are catastrophic. The person will be angry and the relationship will be damaged permanently. They will think I am cold or uncaring. I will be seen as not a team player, and it will affect my career. I will hurt someone I care about. These beliefs are rarely accurate. Most people, most of the time, accept a clear no with far more grace than the people pleaser anticipates. Most relationships are more robust than the anxiety imagines. Most organizations respect the professional who manages their commitments honestly. Testing these beliefs, setting a boundary, and observing what actually happens rather than what the anxiety predicts is one of the most powerful practices available for loosening the grip of people-pleasing. Each time you set a boundary and the relationship survives, and the sky does not fall, and the person adapts and carries on, you accumulate evidence against the catastrophic beliefs and build the neural foundation of genuine confidence. Conclusion. The gift you give by saying no. We have traveled a long distance together in this audiobook. We began with the recognition that people-pleasing is not kindness, but anxiety, a learned response to the fear of disapproval that once served a function but now extracts enormous costs from our productivity, our relationships, and our well-being. We explored the precise mechanisms by which people-pleasing destroys focus and prevents deep work. We examined the paradox that genuine relationships are built on the foundation of honest limits, not on endless accommodation. We learned the neuroscience of the automatic yes and the practice of the deliberate pause. We built a language and a set of practices for setting hard, honest, compassionate boundaries in specific professional and personal contexts. And we made the case that protecting your focus through hard boundaries does not merely improve your productivity, it can transform it. But I want to close with something beyond productivity, because the deepest gift of learning to set hard boundaries is not that you will accomplish more. It is that you will finally be present for what you do accomplish. The person who has learned to say an honest no brings something different to their yes. Their attention is not fragmented across a dozen half-commitments. Their energy is not depleted by resentments and obligations they should never have taken on. Their presence, in their work, in their relationships, in the quiet moments of their own life, is full rather than partial. This fullness of presence is what makes success feel like something. It is what allows the work to be genuinely satisfying rather than merely completed. It is what lets the relationship be genuinely nourishing rather than merely maintained. Setting hard boundaries is not the practice of caring less. It is the practice of caring well, of directing your finite and precious energy toward the people, the work, and the life that you have genuinely, freely, wholeheartedly chosen. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Thank you for listening. May your no be honest, your yes be whole, and your work be worthy of the focus you give it.